A lot of times we're stuck at this intersection in these crossroads and we don't know what decision to make, what path to take. And whenever that happens, the Bible says in the book of Colossians, let the peace of God rule your heart. Now, what's interesting about that word rule is that literally, and a newer translation renders it this way, literally means in Greek umpire. So back in the day, there were these officials in games. So you had the Pan-Ionian Games in Ephesus, the Isthmian Games in Corinth, the Olympic Games in Athens. And these ruling officials would act as umpires and referees. So they had them even thousands of years ago. And so it's like, how do you know what decision to make if you're at a crossroads? And Paul says, let the peace umpire. So I know this sounds Christianese to say, but you'll have a peace about it. You'll have a peace about it. And if the umpire's saying safe, you'll have a peace. I'm safe to make this decision. If the umpire's saying out, and you just have I'm sounding really Christianese now, a check in your heart where you're like, man, I'm getting called out on the carpet here. The umpire, the peace is saying, don't go there. So in other words, Psalm 37 says, pursue peace. Pursue the peace. Not just in our relationships with people, as that's talking about, but also in our own heart. And one of the ways you can know which way to go is by following the peace. Now, people can take this out of context and say, I have a peace about robbing 7-Eleven. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. Using common sense. The Bible talks about Sophia, which is lofty wisdom, but also phronesis, which is sound judgment. So use sound judgment, but ultimately with those gray issues, the peace will umpire your heart. So you're gonna like this, Bobby. So Mother Teresa was interviewed by Dan Rather. And Dan Rather said, you know, when you talk to God, what does he say? Or pardon me, he said, Dan Rather said, when you talk to God, what do you say? She said, oh, I don't say anything when I pray. I just listen.
Yeah.
So Dan Rather said, okay, so when God talks to you when you pray, what does he say? And she said, he doesn't say anything, he listens. And Dan Rather was rather confused, didn't understand. And she said, if you don't understand that, I can't explain it to you. And I just picture that Psalm 42 idea of deep calls into deep. Sometimes there's a time for talking intentionally to God. Science shows the frontal lobe of the brain activates into its highest intellectual capacity when you talk intentionally to God and be very specific. But then there's other times where it's just deep calling into deep. There's not clarity, there's just trust. There's not understanding, there's just faith. It's spirit testifying with spirit, as the book of Romans says. And there's a lot of power in that mystical form of prayer as well.